am Peter Freer. I am founder and CEO of Play Attention, and welcome to ADHD and Parenting from Reactive to Responsive Parenting. Again, thanks for taking your time to be here. And I have been involved in this field for well over 30 years. And I started Play Attention because I had students, both adults and children, who could not function. I had a background in mathematics, science, physics, computer programming, and I thought I will help fix them. So naively began working 3 jobs, 6 days a week to create Play Attention. So I have amassed a lot of work with many, many thousands of ADHD parents. And today's webinar will be absolutely to talk to you about what we've done in that time, what I've learned, what I can offer to help. So I really appreciate you being here to listen. But this is a community and I am limited in time. So I'd love for you to also at the end share what you've done successfully, because remember, we're here as friends talking over coffee, right? No one here has all the answers. There are good things to do. We'll talk about them more thoroughly as we go through this. But one of the first things that I can tell you that is super important for you is that you are being watched. You are being watched by your children. You may not realize it. You may not know that they're doing that, but you may hear a laugh coming out of your child that sounds just like your laugh. You may see them use mannerisms or phrases that are just yours. Just they've picked them up from you. Remember, you are their first and most important teacher, and they watch. So if you're distracted much of the time, you can be guaranteed that they'll be distracted much of the time. They copy you. So in light of that fact, while we're listening to the webinar today, let's set aside the distractors, right? Let's set aside, turn off the TV. If you're watching me on your cell phone right now, then just turn off your messaging. But let's stay focused on the day, because remember, what you do is what your children do. You're their number one teacher. So we're going to cover a lot of ground today. And the first thing is why parenting an ADHD child is different. Then we'll go into executive dysfunction and executive function, reactive cycle, from reactive to responsive parenting, executive function tools that you can use at home. And what happens if you are parenting and you also have been diagnosed as ADHD, right? Then real life transformation. How do we actually make these changes and make them real? And then the final one, which is really, I think, where we all want to end up. We want to have an independent child who can self-regulate, who can be independent, who can make informed, good decisions, who can act without being impulsive. These are the important things. I don't think there's a parent here who plans to have their child living in their basement at age 40 and still depending on them. So I think we can all see we're starting to understand at the very first of this what is different, and then how do we lead them toward independence is where we're headed. I hope this all makes sense. While why parenting a child who's diagnosed as ADHD is different, and this is super important. And I think obviously this presents a set of hurdles for every parent, something that you never expected, but they're there nonetheless. But you still have that desire for your child to become independent, become happy, to be able to solve problems on their own, be able to function on their own. But the first thing that we need to understand, very first thing, is that they process information far differently than a neurotypical person does. Their brain is actually different. Now, Is this harmful or bad? Not really. Just depends on how you cope and how you teach them to learn the skills they need to learn. So if if you are able to follow this, that they do process differently, then it's important to understand that you're not failing, right? If what you're doing is not working for you right now, you just need a different approach. And so we'll move from reactive to responsive parenting. And remember, we're sharing information. So at the end, things that you have done that you could tell other people that you did, if you have them, we're going to listen to. I'll read them off from the chat section at the end so that everyone kind of understands we're all in this together. Now, I'll give you a good point in this. At almost the same time, in 2005, 20 years ago, I was featured on a program here in the United States called Good Morning America. We have a global audience, so I don't know if everyone here knows what that is. But Good Morning America is one of the biggest daytime morning news, TV, entertainment shows in the US. So they had me on, they featured Play Attention, and they had filmed me about a month or two before it. And then when they filmed me and they did the used Play Attention and were able to move things around the screen by their attention alone and learn executive function skills, they went and interviewed a New York City mom. And her response was, the day is so hectic at our house. It's at times chaotic. I don't have time to spend on this. So she was satisfied with living in chaos and not being able to see a different path. So, one of the first things I want to say, if you're here, I applaud you. I absolutely applaud you for being of a, how can we say it, a growth mindset, right? You see that there is a possibility of a different way of approaching this, which would be less combative, more fun, and may have a far better outcome for my child. So again, we're going to share information so that we get there in the end. We can share all of these tips and strategies with each other so that we do have a new path forward. All right. So we're into executive function. Many of you here already know what this is, and it is such an important element when you are diagnosed with ADHD because ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, is actually the wrong name. It's a terrible name. Uh, it really is, attention is only a very small portion of this. It should be called executive function disorder. In this case, how can we think about what executive function is? I would like you to just for ease, and I used this in my last webinar, and a lot of you actually are here from that webinar, so please bear with me. Executive function you can consider much like an orchestra, all right? And in the orchestra, you have a conductor, and we consider the conductor executive function. And then all of these skill sets in executive function, whether it's working memory, being able to manipulate data in my head so that I can make um, solve a problem, make good decisions. That's working memory. Emotion regulation, so that I don't blow up over the most minor things. Mental flexibility, the ability to change in the moment and not be upset. Self-checking to see if the things I'm doing are actually working or not working. Being able to start a task on time. Organization and prioritizing are typically skills that are very, very weak as well. And inhibitory control. Can I monitor my ability and not be impulsive? Right? All of those are skills that form the orchestra. Now, if you've ever gone to an orchestra before, you know it's a little chaotic at the very beginning of the concert that they're going to play. The orchestra members are tuning their instruments. Some of them are playing pieces from the night's performance. Some of them are shuffling music. Some of them are talking to each other. So it's a little bit chaotic. But then the conductor, which is executive function, walks out onto the stage and the conductor taps the baton, raises the baton, and then the orchestra is silent and he starts moving his hands and music arises. All of these sections of the orchestra work together under the guidance of the conductor and they make music. Now, if we think of working memory as the percussion section, emotion regulation as the woodwinds, mental flexibility as the string section, self-monitoring as the horn section. If one of those is not working well, or they're not playing very well, if one of those whole sections is not doing very well, no matter how good the conductor is, the music is not going to be very good. So that is the predicament we're in when we talk about ADHD being an executive function problem. Executive function, the orchestra is comprised of all of these different skill sets, these different sections. If they're weak, the music's not going to be good. If the conductor is weak, the music's not going to be very good. So we have to get everyone to play together on the same playing field. Now, when you're encountering this in your child, and this is what creates the biggest conundrums for parents, because typically ADHD means that diagnosis means that executive function skills are either weak, non-existent, or the ability to conduct all of them is weak. So how do we fix this, right? Like not acting on impulse. How do I fix that? I remember working with a family and they could not fathom why their child would constantly walk through a dark living room at night as he's walking toward the kitchen to get a drink of water, never turn the lights on in the living room, even after he had slammed his shin into the coffee table in the dark numerous times. He would constantly redo it. It's a 6-year old, 7-year old, 8-year old. He continued to do it. They just could not fathom how he could possibly not understand walking through that living room at night with the coffee table being in the same place, why he would repeat this behavior. It doesn't make sense to a neurotypical person. But if you understand how they process, how an ADHD brain processes information, you go, he's not even aware of that surrounding. And he's acting impulsively. He's just going to go and do his thing. That's the way his brain acts. So we need to actually make certain that we're teaching them how not to act on impulse. And we can do that. The brain is very neuroplastic. It can make these changes. Emotion regulation. If you've ever been with your child, let's say in a grocery store, they ask you, Mom, Dad, can I get this? And they've got this big bag of candy, and you go, No, you've already had enough sweets for the day. Let's get something else, some fruit, or we're just not getting that today. We'll get it next time we're. And all of a sudden, you get this volcanic eruption, screaming. They pitch a fit. They may throw the bag across the store, and you're like, I just said, no, what is the problem here? And you don't say anything because now you're horrified. Everyone's turning around and they're staring at you. If this resonates, let me know. If any of these resonate, just raise your hand and let me know because many of you who are here probably have just experienced things like this over and over again. Right? I remember working with a mom, Laura, who said, I don't think my child can hear me because I tell him to go upstairs, put his pajamas on, brush his teeth, get ready for bed. And then I go up there an hour later, he should be in bed. I don't understand this. He's sitting on the edge of his bed playing a Game Boy. I don't know if he can't hear me. What is wrong with him? And I said, well, that is task completion and actually auditory processing. He has a problem with auditory processing. And that means he heard her say, and he processed, go to your bedroom. He got it. Did he process any of those steps after that? Not at all. But that is his brain function. And that's important to realize because she was infuriated and felt it was him being disrespectful or disobedient. And if we understand this, that these types of things, they're not trying to be disobedient. They they love you and they want to follow your direction. Their brain is not capable at times. Task initiation or completion, you ask them to go up and clean the room. You come back an hour or two later, and they're in the room playing with something, and that room is still looks like a cyclone hit it. Planning and or organizing, can they plan? Can they organize? Can they get their backpack organized so that you can find their homework when they bring it home without trying to pull out scraps of paper finding homework? Um, if you've noticed these are problems you experience, this is why it's so difficult for us to understand an ADHD mind. Working memory. I remember when I was teaching, I would have parents that would come to me because I was the person who could discuss ADHD out of all the other teachers in that school. They would come and say, look, we worked for over 2 hours last night. And when we left, he had his multiplication tables. And then he took the test today and he didn't remember anything, very little. I mean, we even high-fived each other. Patrick was his name. We even high-fived each other because he had done so well. And then he comes into the test. I don't get it. What happened? And again, that's working memory issue that, again, it's part of the ADHD diagnosis. So what we're talking about here, you can't fix by yelling. You can't fix by coercion, punishment. Many of you have probably tried punishment, right? Doesn't mean that you hit your child. It means that there are consequences and you know, but it doesn't seem to matter. You take everything away that seems important to them and nothing changes. Anyone resonate with that one? Hey, like, what am I going to do? What I try everything. And what do I do? If that's not working, what do I do? So you have to understand, again, the first thing I mentioned was that their brain processes information differently. They also have skill sets that are very weak or non-existent. They don't know how to use parts of their brain yet. Now, neuroplasticity allows us to train that, but it doesn't happen through yelling, through punishment, through consequences, all the rest of it. Uh, it has to be different. And this is the responsive parenting changes that a little bit. Instead of reactive, what we typically do is reactive parenting. And I don't blame anyone. I would be so annoyed if this was, and we studied multiplication tables for 2 or 3 hours. He's got it. Ted's going to ace that test tomorrow, and then all of a sudden it's disappeared. I don't get it. But if you're yelling about it, it's kind of like asking a kid who needs glasses to see better, right? Just try harder. Just try to see better. And that's not going to change him. Well, if you don't see better, I'm going to take all this away. The eye, in that case, if they need glasses, they need glasses. You can tell them, yell at them, punish them all you want. They're not going to see better. So just knowing that, everybody can take a deep breath, go, okay, it's not me. I understand now. It's the way their brain functions. They're not trying to fight me. They're not, although it may seem like it, they're not trying to defy me. They're not trying to be disobedient. They're not trying to be disrespectful. The brain doesn't get it, and I've set them up for failure. So, and this happens because this is parenting. This is what we do. We figure we've got this. But when you're with a child who's been diagnosed, you're a parent of a child who has been diagnosed as ADHD, things are different, right? I hope this is making sense to you. Remember, all we need to do is find a different way of working together to make this happen. All right, hovering over your child. And this is pretty much what I kind of just described too. When I hover over my child, he seems to be able to do all of this. How many people have found that? When I hover over him, he can pay attention to what we're doing, right? When I hover over him, we can get multiplication tables, but then they disappear later, right? When I hover over him, I can guide him into making proper choices. When I hover over him, he doesn't act out. He doesn't do things impulsively. Why is that? The answer to that is that you have taken over as his executive function. And I can tell you this is a profound statement. Listen carefully. His brain is not operating on its own very well, to do these tasks that we need him to do to be successful and happy. And so when I hover, I have become that part of his brain. I am his executive function. Are you with me? What does that mean, though? Because it does give us some success in the moment. And so we feel good for a little bit. But what this is doing long term is creating dependence. So he becomes dependent upon me to be successful in his life, to make the right decisions, to plan and organize, to finish tasks, to not act impulsively. So at age 40, when he hasn't been able to hold a job, because this won't happen when he's away from me, if he makes it through school and he tries to get a job and the employer's not willing to hover over him, then he's in your basement with no job, living there for the rest of his life. And many of you probably have friends that you've seen this happen to, right? And it's unfortunate, but you can understand that if we do certain things, there are certain consequences will happen, certain outcomes will happen. So we have to be very aware. Hovering over and helping your child is not problematic. You can do that, but there's much more required when you're the parent of an ADHD child. Is that making sense? What typically happens if we are a reactive parent is that small issues erupt into huge ones, right? And this is very, very common because when it comes to a head, after I try to be calm, I try to be, you know, guide her, I try to make certain she's going to do what she's supposed to do. And after a while, we butt heads so often because she's not doing the things that I expect her to do, because I expect her to behave in a way that a child whose brain operates differently would behave. Her siblings, perhaps, all behave. They're good kids. They listen to me. They do what I want them to do, and they behave. And she just can't get a grasp on it. And so I heard this from Sarah, who said, "By the time we get to bedtime, I'm just done, and so is my child." Because they have been arguing about homework. They've been yelling at each other. You don't understand me. You don't get me. Um, there's a big, big problem, big problem, big chasm between the two of them. Does this resonate? Does this sound like things that you're fighting right now? That's very important. So, how do we change this, right? How do we make the shift from reactive parenting, which causes the ADHD volcano, to being responsive and the shift? Now, here are the fundamentals to it. The changes are really not major changes to your lifestyle. you make small changes to your lifestyle. And I'll go through these with you so that we can, look at these together. Patience and calmness have to be your top priorities. Remember what I said initially? Who is their first, foremost, and most important teacher? Does anyone remember the answer to that? I said that initially. That's right. It's you, the parent, right? Ephraim, perfect. Absolutely. Thanks for being here. It is you, the parent. Absolutely. Parents must be this patient, calm in the storm, no matter how hard it becomes. And it can be done. It really can be. In my long journey, when I was working 3 jobs, 6 days a week to start play attention, one of my jobs was teaching during the daytime. One of my jobs in the evening was teaching martial arts. I have an eighth degree black belt, and I've been teaching for years. And my last job that I took to earn enough money to start play attention was at as a security in a one of the best restaurants in town, and they had a bar. So when things got bad, Peter, people act very strangely when they're inebriated, and they're not nice. And no matter what, that my way of handling this was with patience and calmness. No matter, and you wouldn't believe the things that people would say to me. I think you can imagine them. But they said some of the most horrid things, and I just smiled. I said, "Thank you so much. Your cab is waiting. Let's walk together to do." And I would just smile and treat it like that. If people got into arguments, I would treat it just as if they were children. Now, did he say that to you? All right, we can't talk like that. This kind of things. But it is possible to do. The whole point of that comment is no matter how rough things get, you can be patient and you can be calm. And you are their teacher. So if you are not patient and you're not calm, it is viral in that way, and that they'll catch on to that. And they become less calm and less patient, and then you guys clash. But if you remain calm no matter what, it becomes contagious. So you'll see that actually happen if you employ that. All right. And then we have to up our listening skills and we have to up our teaching skills. And we'll go into this in greater detail as we move forward. So we'll list some executive function tools you can use at home. Now, these are not going to solve all of your problems, right? But they will give you some assistance in creating an environment where you can start to make change for them. Because remember, executive function can be trained. That is exactly why I created Play Attention years ago, using neurotechnology to allow them to control executive function games by mind alone, so that, through their attention, they pay attention to the screen, wearing a little armband, and they're able to practice these skill sets. Because, as a teacher, I found it very difficult to train executive function, although I attempted it. I had a very um, I had a very, very unique classroom strategy. And when we were making decisions, we made them together. Perhaps we were going to undertake a project together. And it was much different. We were going to take a trip in a rocket ship we would build in our classroom. And we built a rocket ship in our classroom. And it was a huge cardboard box. We put a computer in it. We took a tour through, at that time, all we could do is a mural that would, a person outside could um, turn a handle and they could take a trip through the universe with a guide inside. But we planned those projects. And when we did, I would place pros and cons on the blackboard. What are the pros to this project? What are the cons? And then we would also list who's responsible for doing what. All right. So we kind of laid out a map so that there was a way that we could work together as a team and not fight. All right. This is super, super important, right? And I think I had a good question come in, and I want to just mention that. Realistically, Tisha said, how can we remain calm as parents? I mean, what is the magic to this? Bear in mind, we may also have some executive functioning impairment as well. And Tisha, that is a great question, right? And I'm going to address that in just a moment because there is a whole section in here is like, what if I'm ADHD? What if I'm diagnosed with ADHD as well? How bad does that get? I'll go over that with you. That's a great question. There is no magic in it. It's just doing it. And I mean, when people would yell and horrid, horrid things and threatening my life, threatening my family's life, as I'm trying to get them out of a bar situation, I simply smiled. And no matter what, I remained calm in that storm. And I can't tell you how many times that saved my life in there because there were life-threatening situations that arose. But just being calm and being in it absolutely was able to stay in the moment and get things taken care of with basically no one really getting hurt at all. So you can absolutely do it. There is there are ways, and again, it's just a matter of you learning to remain in the moment and remain calm. And if you cannot, then you have to learn to. I mean, that's one of the things you'll learn today, right? Because it's really important um, that we are able to address these things personally. Because if we can't do them, then we need to do them together, right? We need to learn these things together. I hope that makes sense. And that it just can't be one-sided. If I do not have calmness, it's not going to spread in the family. So I have to learn to be calm. And there are ways to do that. And we'll go to them. But great question, by the way. And I will do my best to answer questions at the end and also share your tips and strategies if you have them as well. Visual reminders, right? And these are inexpensive. You know, you can put a whiteboard you can buy for, $10 at an Office Depot or something like that. Small one. Don't need a huge one. And you can just put reminders up there, right? Or you can just put a list up on the refrigerator with a magnet. Visual planners, sticky notes, all of these things. But remember, if you use these, use them sparingly and when it's very important. Don't just put them up all over the place because then everybody just ignores them. You have a plan. Remember, if you use something like visual reminders, do the pros and cons. Here are the pros, here are the cons. The pros are it'll help remind us of things that we're responsible for and we must do. Here are the cons. Well, if you put too many of them up, I'm not going to pay attention because I'm overwhelmed. And and this is something Tisha might have meant in her response to me as well. Um, if you are diagnosed as ADHD, you constantly are in a sense of overwhelm. Does that make sense? Tisha, you feel me on that, right? So I feel like I am overwhelmed all the time. How are you asking me to be calm when I am struggling, right? I think that's, and Tisha said, yeah, indeed. So remember that you have to take care of you. They have to take care of them, and you'll help with both, and we can help you do that. But there has to be a routine that is applied, and then you have to be consistent. And of course, if you have been diagnosed as ADHD, that's very difficult to do in itself, for you to be consistent. So consistency and using planners and sticky notes is very, very valuable. Will it fix everything? No. But is it a good tool? Absolutely. And you can even get these things for free as little apps for your phones. I think you can get them for free. Create predictable routines. Your routine is super, super important, but it has to be predictable, meaning consistent. What happens though is when you lose the routine, right? You have a certain routine you go through, and many of you have probably seen this. I have my morning routine, I get them up, I have to get them ready for school, and there's a bit of a struggle in there, but we still are able to do it. But you change that routine one little bit. Maybe something has come up, grandma's sick, I have to go over there today. You're going to have to do this on your, well, then it turns into a huge mess, right? Because they're not able to process all of this. All they know is that it's different and I can't, I'm overwhelmed. I can't handle this. So now you can kind of understand what I want you to do since we're sharing all of this. What I want you to do is to understand what their mind is processing. And if you understand that, it can help you remain calmer, right? Break the tasks into little steps that are accomplishable, right? If you have a big task, like their whole room is a mess, for example, and you say, I need you to clean your room, and you just leave them at that. Well, number one, they're going to be angry and you'll hear stuff getting thrown across the room. Or you come up an hour later and nothing's gotten done. Something is going to happen that you haven't taken into account because you just told them, I need you to clean your room, go clean the room. Now, you can stand over them and they despise you for doing it, but you can stand over them and they may do it because then you're acting as their executive function. And so they'll do it because you'll guide them into doing it. But if you're not around, will it get done? No. When you're not around, will it get done as they're an adult? No. So break it down to small steps. If you're going to say clean your room, you say, hey, let's just box up these toys, these toys right here, right now. We'll get to the rest of it later today. So box them up and we'll get to the rest of this. We'll clean up a little bit more later. And you can go away. They'll box up those toys because that they can take that one direction, probably no problem. And then you come back later. You guys have a good time during the day. You come back and go, oh, all these clothes off the floor, they got to go up. They got to go into laundry. So please, let's get that done. Should take you 5 minutes. I'll set a timer for you. And so they can do that. But if you try to make them eat the whole elephant in one sitting, all you're in for is a fight. Or it seems like they just disrespect you because they won't do it. Now, why won't they do it? Well, it's not that they won't do it. They can't figure out where to even get started. They have not been able to process how to get started, what's going to satisfy mom, what's going to satisfy dad, where do I start? And I can't complete it even if I did start it. So there's this huge sense of overwhelm, and they feel like a failure. Can't do it. And then when they feel like a failure, they get angry. This normal chain of events that's happening to them, right? And again, it's like you saying, see better. Don't worry about those glasses. See better. Just do it. Well, their brain is not ready to do it. The brain does not process like that. So again, the whole reason for going through this with you is that you're understanding them and you understand the way that they're functioning. And when you do that, you're able to be calm. That's exactly what I did when I was security in the bar. I understand people get ridiculous and often do very ridiculous things when they're not sober. I understand that. Doesn't make me mad. Now, if they tried to lay a hand on me, that was a different story. I had to solve that. But if I was really calm and nice, we were 99% of the time, well, I'd say 95% of the time, able to resolve it, right? That works. It's contagious, right? So it is something we can do, we can learn to do. And finally, use rewards that match the brain that we're talking about. If you're saying, hey, by Friday, you'll get this. Well, that's a little bit too distant because my ADHD brain wants something that's immediate. So we can use an immediate reward. Do this, get that. That'll work. But we don't want to do it all the time and be consistent with what you do in that regard. Maybe you're adding points up for them. So well, that'll get you 10 points. Remember, if we get to 30 points, that's pizza at the end of the week. So it's an immediate reward, but it's amounting to something larger down the line so that they're seeing near-term reward with a long-term goal. Now that's something that we all could work on. I remember wanting a bike so bad, and we were so poor as kids, just absolutely poor. And then when your father leaves, not paying alimony, not paying child support, when my mom was a single parent of six kids, we had no money. I wanted a bike so bad I couldn't stand it. And then I saw a sign at school in shop class. It said, "If you have the itch for money, scratch for it." So I worked job after job after job so that I could get that bike. And I did get the bike, but I worked job after job. And it creates internally a way for me to understand what it takes to get there. Right. And of course, I had no other choice because if I wanted that bike, my mom had no money to pay for that. So again, here, my reward was through work and the importance of that to make enough money to get the bike. When we're using rewards, match the way that their brain works. Give them something that can be immediate, but also can be added up to be something more long term. And then you must be consistent when you do this. If you're inconsistent in the rewards, then after a while, they just don't want to do anything because it's not happening consistently. So they just feel like it's a hit or miss, not going to do it. You must be very calm, positive, consistent, and give them both immediate and the longer term. Okay, I think this is back to Tisha. How many parents are now realizing you're diagnosed, right? And you have it as well. And you may have learned it through your child, seeing this, and you finally went to your physician. The physician said, "Oh, I think you've got ADHD as well. Maybe have tested you." Right? So yeah, a lot of people here are saying, yes, that's the situation. That's the dynamic we have at our house. All right. So one of the things you two can decide on, you and your child can sit down and say, it's like two buddies, drinking over a cup of coffee, right? Man, I am overwhelmed during the day. This is the way I feel. And you tell your daughter that. The daughter says, "That's the way I am at school. It's just so overwhelming. I don't know what's going on. I have no clue. I am so lost." You can commiserate because you both understand each other. And the understanding between the two of you starts creating the relationship you need to be calm and to say, "Hey, what if we tried this? What if we do this together?" All right. And that's the big advantage. If you have it, you don't have to butt heads. You can commiserate and you can work together. This is super, super important. You can understand them and they can understand you. She tells you something and you say, "Oh, I feel that way too. I get like that all the time." Well, how do you cope with it? Well, I do this. Here's some of the things. And if you're not skilled in some of those things and you're kind of lost, you need to learn those things yourself. Those skill sets that you need to strengthen. And you can tell, "Hey, I'm learning to do this. I'm learning to be mindful. I'm learning to be in the moment so that I don't do things impulsively. All right. And I can make good choices because I'm not elsewhere. I'm in the moment." That's being mindful. Something that simple. But I'm learning to do that. I'm teaching myself how to do that. Does that make sense? You with me? We following? Responsive parenting is about grace and understanding. So this is repeating what I've been saying throughout. You must understand the other person. Not that your ADHD child is going to understand you, because if you're neurotypical, you don't understand them. They don't get the way you process. I remember my wife's friend, Kate, best friend, college buddies, best friends forever. And Kate is so ADHD. She's a great person, but she would wonder why the world was so strange. Why do people do that? That just doesn't make sense to me. Why would that happen? When she was very, very ADHD. But she thought the world was different and didn't understand it. And now you feel you're looking at your child going, "I just don't get it. I don't understand this at all." So being responsive is just to have that we start with that understanding. We start with what is going on in that child. And for us, if we are ADHD, we need to understand this fully, not just guess our way through it, because I guarantee a lot of us here have been doing that. And a lot of you have been trying some strategies, and some of them actually probably have worked, which is really good. And I hope that you will share those with us at the end. So, oh, by the way, pay attention. I started this because of the same thing. Could I form a way to teach people to do it? Could I form a way using neurotechnology that would allow them to learn these skills and make significant changes? And the answer is yes. We've been here. This is like our 32nd year, and it's shipped globally in 10 languages. Here are the real life transformations that have happened. This is not me, but this is what Gail sent us. When he started, this is a high school son, teenager. Peter was assigned placement in the self-contained behavior classroom in high school after more bullying behavior in summer school. And he said, "Don't try to believe in me. It won't work." Now, for some of you here who have teens, and I think someone did chime in already, said, I have teens that won't even talk to me. Um, if this is you, understand this is where we got using play attention. He was bullying other kids at school. Don't try to believe in me. It's not going to work. And how lost is that when your child tells you that? It's heartbreaking. So one of the best comments were what Peter had to say about himself. After using play attention for a while. I'm controlling myself better, talking and interacting in class more and getting along with my peers better too. I'm ready to work a job this summer. So Gail sent that. His mom sent that to us. Can it be trained? Absolutely. Kayla, this is Sonia. Kayla is not only diagnosed as ADHD, she is also autistic. Kayla made the honor roll this past semester, and I think we only received 3 emails from her teacher in all that time, which is so much better than one every week. Who can identify with that one? I know a lot of us could. Kayla is definitely learning to control her emotions and her body. I'm so proud of the progress she's made, Sonia. So I know this seems like it may be minor, but it's huge, right? When you have that kind of transformation, think of where you are now and think of where you can go, right? You're not at a dead end. It's the way that you can change and use your skill sets and develop your skill sets to help your child and to help them develop their skill sets. We'll do one more here, I think, for real life transformation. This is from Penny. We've been working for about 4 months now, and I can see significant improvements in my attention, my memory. And this is Penny using it for herself as an adult. I find I'm not waiting until the very last second to get jobs done. This has alleviated a lot of stress I was feeling at work. My kids are definitely able to finish their homework without so much prompting and redirection. So this is a mom, and my daughter, who's 13, was really struggling with emotions. She is much better at regulating those emotions now, so we're not experiencing as many outbursts. That is phenomenal. Could you imagine being able to do that together? So this is Penny, who's using play attention with her family and with her kids that actually have ADHD, have been diagnosed as ADHD as well. So we want to briefly discuss self-regulation and independence. Because remember, our primary goal is to make them independent, to make them have good executive functions so that they can make informed decisions. Responsibility, number one. Make informed decisions, be accountable for their outcomes. Make certain they understand there are consequences. Decision making, right? So this is crucial for independence. They need to be able to navigate their own path, their own journey with autonomy, away from a hovering parent who is being their executive function. Emotion regulation, what we just saw Penny say about her child. Children who can regulate their emotions are better equipped to handle challenges and setbacks. Conflict resolution, one of the things I specialized in when I was uh, the head of security. Engage in constructive communication, manage disagreements, and find peaceful solutions. And I had some of the utmost challenges, but still remained calm. It still became contagious. It was very, and I managed to get all of the folks that worked under me to do the same thing. Planning and organization. Manage their time, set goals, and organize their tasks. All of this is necessary so that they're not living in your basement at age 40, or they get separated from you because you have not found a path where you could communicate well. And now you are uh, at a stage where you're not communicating with each other at all. And I think someone here said that. Um, Tina asked, um, how can I handle my adult ADHD kids who won't maintain any contact with me? I know they struggle, and I have ADHD as myself as well. And that's really heart-wrenching because, you lost that bond right now. It doesn't mean that it's permanent. But Tina, one of the places to start that I would suggest in this case is you make the change. You have emotional regulation. You develop the awareness of what is happening. You have, hopefully by the end of this webinar right now, you're getting to a point where this is easy for you. Yes, you make the actions and be present because that is the start of change. It must happen within you first, right? So I just want to go through this briefly. The nexus between independence and parenting. If you act as your child's executive function or self-regulation, they will never learn it internally. So they're going to require your brain to do it for them the rest of their lives. Make sense? This makes your child highly dependent on you. This disables your child from functioning well without you. I know it seems like the only thing to do, but you also know if you're here that doing this is very limited. It doesn't work very well because they go to away from you in school, things go downhill. They come home and tell you they're frustrated at school, they hate school, they want to leave as soon as they can. But I do want you to see this Venn diagram. This is like being back at grade school, isn't it? Yeah, you see the Venn diagram. All of these overlap. They are so interrelated. My decision making is dependent on my planning and organization. My conflict resolution is dependent on my emotional regulation. All of this to become independent are all part of the same thing. A responsibility is a part of my planning and organization, right? All of these are interrelated. If we don't teach them, they're not going to happen on their own, which is what you found out, and that's why you're here. So, how do we foster self-regulation for independence? You can teach emotional intelligence, right? Model self. Here's the big one that we're just talking about with Tina. Model self-regulation, because remember, you are their number one teacher. And even if they're separate from you, you learn self-regulation. If you're ADHD, you've been diagnosed as ADHD as well. You have to learn it. Once you learn it, you can share those things with your children and learn to patch up whatever fences have been, uh, you know, broken. You can mend the fences. This will provide them with autonomy, right? So they can function, they can make good decisions on their own. You have to set realistic expectations. Remember what I talked about as far as asking your child to clean his room or clean her room. Don't try to get them to eat the whole elephant at one time. Set realistic expectations. They'll meet them, but set things that they can do, they can manage. Offer constructive feedback, right? This is very important. One of the things that we tend to do as parents is that we oftentimes will catch them being bad, all right? Um, if we understand that, right? You didn't do this right. Correct it. I'm tired of listening to this. I'm tired of seeing this. Anybody heard themselves say that? Right? So instead, here's the opposite. As a responsive parent, catch them being good, right? Jill, I really love the way you did that. Shanika, that was so nice. I really appreciate you getting that done for me. I never would have gotten that done if you hadn't done that. So catch them being good. You can correct when it's necessary, but for the most part, try to catch the positives. Try to catch it when they reinforce it. Is it making sense? Organizational skills, you can teach them. I used to teach that. Remember, I told you we list the pros and cons, who's responsible. Those are organizational skills. They don't teach those in schools anymore, really, because they're teaching to do the end of grade test, which is where the school gets their money. Organizational skills are really, really important, though. We can teach them. Empower through choice. We have to set the environment to do all of this, though, right? We give them the choice, but we limit the choices, right? So empower through choice. Would you like to do A or would you like to do B? I'm not going to give you A, B, C, D. I'm going to give you A or B. All right. Would you like to clean your room now? Uh, and we'll do this right now? Or do you want to come back in a half an hour after we clean the garage and do? So you're going to get what you need out of them, but you're setting the parameters that they can handle a little bit at a time. Remember, you can yell all you want, but they're not going to see better, right? They have to get their glasses. In other words, they have to learn executive function skills. That's their glasses. If you don't, yelling at them is not going to improve their vision, right? Yelling at them is not going to improve their ability to manage these things. Encourage responsibility. Remember, catch them being good. Oh, you took Sammy the dog out. You took Sammy out and you picked up after him in the yard. Thank you so much. That was so nice. So good. Love your help. Encourage that responsibility, right? When you catch it, encourage it. Teach time management. Get them a timer. Teach them how important that is because time blindness, huge problem. And this, again, if you want them to be independent, these are the skills. Good decision making, right? Good decision making. This is important. And again, I was teaching that in school because it didn't seem like they knew what they were doing. Even regular school kids don't have that. It's not that strong. Seek professional support. If you can't do it on your own, find somebody that can help you. You may find someone within your religious, whether it's church or synagogue or mosque, wherever you're going, someone there may be able to help. They may actually have a program for it. If you want to pay for a medical professional, you may be able to get it there. When they do have wins that are really good, celebrate them. And all this is done through effective communication, but the effective communication must start in calmness and mindfulness, which is exactly what we do. This is play attention, wear the arm band. We develop self-regulation, mindfulness techniques, attentional control, behavioral regulation. There's just so much in there. We've done this for many years. That's why we're here today. By the way, there is a back to school special, which gives you the executive function jumpstart bundle. That means everybody in the family can use it. I think there are up to 5 people that can get in on this bundle as well. And I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned, and I'm glad that you're sharing. Thanks, everyone here. Take care.